Right, we are. Great, fantastic. I can see everything. So, good evening, good morning, everybody, depending on where you're joining from. My name is Monica Polemitis. I'm the founder and CEO of Hybrid Consultech, and I'm here today with Thomas Gamble and Sean McKenzie. We're both partners at TKI, joining from the States, while I'm based in Cyprus. So good morning, first of all, Tom and Sean.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for joining me today. So for this day's webinar, we wanted to go through what digital asset management is, give some background as to what a digital asset is, and then go through the process of properly managing or automating your processes in order to achieve both consistencies and in addition to better productivity when it comes to marketing a company or an organization. So let me kickstart this meeting by asking you both, first of all, what is a digital asset when we're talking about a company?
I can start, and then Sean, you can join if you want. So essentially, what I think we define and what I think is easiest to define is really anything that supports a brand. So it could be things like the way in which to use the brand. It could be fonts. It could be photography. Could be renditions of a company's logo. Essentially, if you look at it, it could also, by the way, be marketing materials, tactics. So it's really any asset that would support a brand and the brand messaging, be it identity, acquisition of new customers, or upgrade, or really just support of existing customers. Sean, I don't know if you want to add, but it's really all things brand.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so everything from static elements that are used to build communications materials that are used for marketing, branding practices, et cetera, or fully completed assets that have been packaged together and may be available as a grab and go for somebody to just download and distribute the item or publish the item, regardless of what the media is, whether it's a social channel, printed materials, outdoor, TV, et cetera, or you would have the option to customize those particular elements. So a completed template that is already packaged together, but provides for options for a partner or an employee or a marketing resource or brand ambassador or whatever the role may be to select from certain elements that may be available within the system, swap out the logo, swap out an image, change the headline, type in their own copy or whatever it may be, and produce an updated, localized output for use for their marketing or branding purposes. So it's the combination of those static elements and those dynamic components to really manage everything within that marketing ecosystem.
Okay, and of course, we know already that depending on the type of company or the sector they are in or who they are addressing, they may have more digital assets or less digital assets. What is the actual problem here? What is the normal or the business as usual that many companies do that we consider is not best practice?
I think there's a couple of keys there, but I think the biggest one is really bringing centralization into something that is otherwise not. Meaning, whether your brand is centralized or even decentralized, as like a franchise model, oftentimes to attain or find a digital asset, you're going to use traditional chat, email. Things of that nature, more the traditional nature of going and saying, hey, I'm building a presentation. Do you have the latest logo? Something like that, right? And oftentimes what you'll find is that while that person you asked may have the latest version of that, whatever it is, logo, photo, whatever it is, it may not be either sanctioned or copyrighted. It may not be in brand compliance, et cetera. And it's all over the lot. What we're trying to solve is providing a centralized destination very easy to get to, very easy to find things, and very easy to distribute. So that way you always have the latest and greatest, it's always sanctioned, and it's always within brand, and it's easy to get. Makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. So basically the problem is that a company may have a lot of digital assets that require updating or require usage throughout the company's marketing efforts, but there seems to be a need for centralization of these assets in order to have them in one place. That's one thing. And then the other aspect is to be able to utilize them in many ways from one single space. Is that the rationale that we want to go to steer towards?
It is, and there's an additional sort of benefit or rationale that goes along with it. When you have a centralized system that's geared towards that, Sean had mentioned the term localization, right? So in many, especially with brands that are geographically diverse, you have situations where the brand and the brand elements may be the same, but the messaging needs to be slightly different to resonate with that locale, right? So in a system that houses digital asset, there's also an element that we often call versioning or localization. Really, all that is saying is that it is an automated way to enter in a local element. So it could be your local office address. It could be a local phone number. It could be an image that's more relevant to the geographic area that you're soliciting. So within that system, you want to also focus on the ability to automate those processes, because what you don't want to do is rely on a manual process to go and do that. One, it's not scalable, and two, it's very expensive, right? So with a digital asset management system set up properly, you can use those elements or those components that are managed centrally and use them to automatically build out versions of your marketing templates.
Okay, and I'm guessing that this is also relevant if a company, as you said before, wants to address different audiences or different geographies, wants to include some policies maybe that are not relevant in all geographies that they are operating in. So we're talking about maybe organizations of groups of companies that have these larger operations, let's say, or the need to have frequent communication with their clients in some way. And I'm thinking the first example that always comes to my mind is, for example, retailers who have intensive marketing campaigns and they want to change their campaigns based on the season or some promotional items that are being promoted at a specific time. I don't know if you see any specific sectors from your side that are most, let's say, going to benefit from this type of activity, centralization and better digital management of their digital assets?
I think that it spans verticals actually and brands, because essentially when someone asks me, where the benefit might be, it's really any brand that wants to sort of maintain control without forcing control, right? So in the sense of, for example, we were talking about localization or versioning, I should be able to go in and change my messaging. But the beauty of it is if I'm doing it through a digital asset management system, the templates that maintain brand integrity, they're already there. But I still have the flexibility to change my phone number or things that the parent does. So really, who we're targeting is anyone that's trying to streamline their brand and the management of those elements. So it could be franchisee, could be large corporate that has many, many, many locations, or it could just be a single corporate location with a need to essentially have partners either learn how to use or contribute to the brand like an advertising agency.
Okay. I wanted to give this introduction before going deeper because you are already doing this in the States, and this is you have developed this language around the BrandServe, which is the product that we're going to talk about, but maybe some language that is used, as we have mentioned before in private conversations, is not so transferable in other parts of the world. So I wanted to define what we are talking about and what we mean by digital assets, digital asset management, and centralization and versioning and all of these terms that we are using. So let me ask you now, and by the way, if anybody, I know that people are watching us online, if you have any questions, I'm hoping that they will come up here on my screen from wherever you're watching, but feel free to let us know if you have any questions, and we will we'll do our best to address it. So going a little bit deeper, we wanted to discuss BrandServe specifically. Could you tell us a little bit more about BrandServe as a product, and then we can go through the process of somebody who is interested and what might they be considering if they want to dig deeper into adopting it?
Sure. So BrandServe is essentially as defined here, is a SaaS-based marketing asset management application. So what does that mean? It just simply means it is an online piece of software website that you can pay to subscribe to, not individually, but at the corporate or brand level, where your employees and or your partners can log in to view, customize, and distribute your marketing assets, right? So it's essentially everything we've been talking about, a centralized destination that allows you to maintain governance as a brand and provide the ability for dissemination and localization, right? Distribute and customize of those assets.
Okay, so let's say a company is considering to adopt this digital asset management tool. What is the first thing that they should consider? What should be in place?
I think that the first thing that we recommend you look at is, start slow first, right? So we can get to the automation piece second, but the first thing is basically start slow and understand, what you have. And typically, that falls at the easiest area there is assets. So what do I have? And I'll share my screen in a minute, but what do I have by way of photography, or how do I use PDFs on how do I use my brand, logos, things of that nature. And actually, Monica, if you want me to share my screen while I talk,
Absolutely.
Is that easier? Okay,
yes.
Great. Let me do that. Okay, so this is the front door step of BrandServe. It happens to be for a large cable company here in the United States. You'll see essentially that there are two ways to get in. So if I'm an employee, or if your brand has a single sign-on, like a Microsoft Office 365 or something of that nature, where you have one account to sign into every application, we support that. Conversely, you can also have a registration process where a user can request access and answer a customized set of questions that will allow them to not only get access to the tool, but turn on and turn off certain things based on who they are and what their role is going to be within the application. So before I log in, I just wanted to go through that. So for example, if you're an employee, a vendor, a partner, or an agency, these are all things that may give you access to different facets. So I'll log in and sort of go back to the logo side of things, or excuse me, the asset side of things. So when you log in, you're presented with a dashboard that's very simply put a quick way to get to important things within the application. We were talking about the branding side, which is the first way to sort of get things started. So I'm just going to go in, and you can see here, the navigation structure is unique to the client using it. So everything you see on our screen here is customized or set up for the individual brand and how they, one, call things, because everybody uses different nomenclature, and two, what they have available. So for example, if I go in, and we were talking about getting access to, or excuse me, getting your hands around what you do have within an organization. So the first thing is, let's find out what we have. And again, this could be anything from email, or excuse me, from images to stock of photography and things like that. And once you have them, let's assign what we call metadata. That is really just attributes or characteristics of that asset. So for example, here, I can say, okay, I clicked on logos, I have logos selected, but if I go into photography, for example, you'll notice that below, things start to expand. So I can say, okay, here are my pictures that are sanctioned for use in presentations or whatever your, marketing materials. I can say, well, I'm really only interested in photography that has devices in it, and is black and white or color, in the case that here, or, gender, or whatever your attributes are there, you can very quickly get to that particular item. So the first thing is find them, sort of tag them or define them, if you will. And then the second thing, which is really great for its users, is you can go in and essentially, as the application can help you select what you need versus you trying to figure out what I want. So in the case of this, for example, I can go in and I'll go to the detail of the item. I can see here, and I apologize, Chrome has decided to keep popping up things. But essentially I can go in, I can see this is, a video surveillance. So let's say that I'm building a print piece. Well, normally I'd have to understand what type of file that I would use to build a print piece, but not everybody knows that. So we've set up, you can set up buttons to very quickly say, well, I'm building a print piece, I only want those elements, or I'm building a social media piece, I only want those elements. So the application can be smart enough to help you select what you need. And then once you do that, you simply download it, it creates an order. And here's the beauty of it is, now that we've aggregated, we've tagged it as a brand, I can categorize or analyze who's using it and how much, because it'll create an order. The second I go and download this, I know who downloaded it and I know when they downloaded it. So in the case of an update, I can do one update and communicate to everyone. So I'm going to pause there for a second. Does that make sense by way of, kind of categorizing and finding the asset, or excuse me, and loading the assets into a centralized location?
My question would be, let's say I'm doing this for the very first time. I am looking at a blank space, basically, and I am left to decide what to upload in this blank space. We do provide support in this exercise, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, what we will do is, this is chock full, right? They have a ton of stuff in here, but they wouldn't have that day one. Typically, it's all over the place, on share drives, in emails, it's sort of everywhere, right? So the very first step, aside from cataloging, is helping you to create a strategy of what goes there and what it's named and all of that sort of stuff. So it's very easy for your users. So yes, we walk you through and help you set up the process, and even go as far, if you want us to load that content for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
The second piece that I think we should just take a peek at and look is going into templates, for example. This client calls marketing templates, which are items that are willing or that are able to be customized. They simply just call them templates. You can call them tactics, you can call them, collateral, whatever works. I actually saved a couple so I can very quickly get to it. But what we're going to look at is an out of home. It's actually a billboard, if I'm not mistaken, or an LED sign rather, that if I'm not mistaken, that is, this will show the example of what you can do by way of automation and control. So you can see here, it gives me an overview of what's there. It tells me what's allowed to be changed. So very often you'll create something, and this has application to digital or print. Let's just say even social, right? Because every outlet has a different size. Typically what you'll do is you'll work with an agency or yourself, right, to design it. And then in each situation, you will need to save it out or make modifications to get it to that next size, right? Here, we're going to show you how to do it automatically. And you can change the image, etc. So this basically shows sort of that power of customization, whereby I can go in, you can see the default is set up to the brand, Cox, the sports character here in case of Cardinals. I can go in and say, I don't want 1400. I'm actually going to change it to 2880. I'm going to change my team to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And my image, I'm going to do the same. right? So now you'll see in the background down here, it's telling you it's automatically changing that for you. And within a few seconds, it will go ahead and make those changes for you and display the new item. While it's doing that, one item down here that I did want to call out is that this particular brand and customer wanted the ability to kind of bolt on their internal agency so that if, let's say, there's a sports team that you do need for one of whatever you're producing, but it's not available online, you can actually open or insert a ticket here that will route directly to the internal agency so that they will already have the size done for them and everything. All they have to do is drop the logo in that isn't online and send it out. So you can see here while I was talking, essentially it changed the size and it changed the Cornhuskers. It moved to their logo versus the Cardinals. So this is just a good example of once you've aggregated everything and categorized it properly, now you can say, okay, how do I make things more scalable, more efficient, and certainly cost less by being able to really do all the work of production online without, I don't know anything about doing any of that stuff, and I'm able to do this.
Okay, great. So, and by the way, I will repeat that if anybody has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, because I'm monitoring the chat. I'm monitoring the chat from the people watching online as well from our social media. We will be happy to take any questions. So we are at the point where we have uploaded our assets. We have the templates that are available, and we can use them in order to customize the output. And then what is the next step?
So at that point, actually, I can do it for you. I'm sorry to bounce around here. I was going to show you one thing, but let me just very quickly do this. So once you go through the customization process, right? So let's actually, just so I don't have to make you wait through the process, I can go ahead and I'll change actually just one thing, generic Cox. Yeah, actually, we'll do this one. Okay. And I'll go ahead and order it. So once you do that, Monica, you can add it to what we call the cart or the virtual cart. Essentially, it will produce either a distribution ready file. So in the case of print, it will automatically create a JPEG or excuse me, a PDF, high-res PDF. In the case of digital, it might produce a JPEG or a PNG. It's producing and doing the choice for you based on the distribution outlet to whether it needs to route to a printer, or in the case of even social, we allow for it to be trafficked or sent directly to Facebook or LinkedIn or things like that automatically. So if you look at the buy flow, it's select, localize or customize, order, and then distribute, which would either be, again, download or send to printer or send to social outlet.
Great. So you can use this space, let's say, in order to manage your social media and actually provide the content for the social media from this one single space. And BrandServe will customize the material in order to fit in your, depending on the social media that you're going to use, correct?
Correct. So let's talk a little bit about social media. And Sean, please keep me honest. But essentially, what we're looking at and what BrandServe enables you to do, it's not to replace some of the big aggregators out there. Like I don't know if anyone would know the name like Hootsuite or things like that. It's not a it produces the content. So the idea here would be you would work with an agency to design your template that we talked about. Once that's done, we would talk about the business rules or the areas that you're allowed to customize. So image or or saying or phone number, whatever it is. And then from there, you would be able to customize it and send it directly to Facebook for posting. And by the way, we do you can also upload your own images and things of that nature. We didn't spend time doing that, but if that's a feature that you allow within your brand, that can be turned on as well.
Great. Don't know if Sean wants to add something because you called him out before.
I don't like to put people on the spot, but if I missed anything, Sean, please feel free.
I think the biggest thing here with regardless of channel, whether it's a social post, it's something that's being produced to go to a printer, or it's being produced like the example you have here, which is out of home billboard, and it happens to be digital. It could be a vinyl billboard, et cetera. But regardless of where the final output is, or how it's being used, or where it's being distributed for fulfillment, the key to all this is that the user of the application does not have to have any design experience, does not have to have access to tools like InDesign or Photoshop or anything of that nature, and they can simply select a template or a core asset, select from customizations like Tom had shown there. Customizations may be different for every individual item or template. As Tom mentioned, we could have the ability to, instead of selecting the grandmother with the son and the Cornhuskers, popcorn bowl, it may have been upload your own image, and that image would be dropped in according to the template. It could be select copy or from a pull down list, or write in your own copy. But the key here is with all of these core assets is as the brand changes, as logos are updated, as brand messaging is updated, et cetera. As Tom mentioned earlier, you're updating the template in one location, and every subsequent order from that point in time will have those updates with it. Whereas in a traditional world, you would have to each time go into the template, make those manual changes. That's where things start to fall apart, where things become misaligned. So when we go into larger organizations, that's the easiest way to see this, is you can look at a set of creative, whether it's just direct mail pieces or it's their print ads or billboards or whatever it may be, and you look at those on their own, and they all appear to be for the same company. When you bring them together and look at them as a collective, you can see how the brand starts to fall apart, because local markets or even corporate entities within each product or brand, et cetera, may have slight variations of things that start to produce some inconsistencies, and it starts to strip away at the equity of the brand. So companies invest a lot in building a brand presence and putting money and resources against that. And by allowing for your creative to be manipulated without tools like BrandServe, you run the risk of really all that equity being stripped away over time. So the key thing here with the tool is you allow for very quick updates from a centralized location. So speed to market is something that is very much addressed here, right? As updates are made, they're made available almost immediately and made available globally to whoever has access to the tool. You've removed cost for local resources to have to be trained to pay for licenses for tools and to actually do the work. So that hourly rate of them making these manual updates. So something like this with this particular version here, this may be the 300th version of this particular ad, but there was no incremental cost related to versioning of that ad. Whereas if you had to pay a local resource to do that, you may be charged, X dollars per time or some hourly rate to do those things. So speed to market, consistency in updates, and reduction in cost for resources to do those things. And if you look at agencies, you're taking, the production work starts to become automated, so agencies can spend more time on heavy lifting and concepting and coming up with new creative and ideas and things along those lines. So typically agencies are quick to embrace the work that we bring to the table, because it really supports everybody across the board. So
Thanks.
Great. And I know that now we're looking at one example, which is a telco, which is a good example because it is one of the sectors that does have a lot of assets that they need to manage. And I guess that one use case for BrandServe is those companies that want to better manage their digital assets, and they want to have one single place, centralized location where they can store everything and then, let's say, build on them to produce material. I know that one other use case is rebranding, and I know that you have done work related to rebranding with BrandServe, and that helped a lot in the process. I don't know if you can name names, but if you cannot, can you share the experience with rebranding?
Yeah, so I can start, but of course I am going to put Sean on the spot for that one since he was very instrumental. But it was one of actually the United States' largest real estate companies. It was a brand called Coldwell Banker, owned by a parent company called Realogy. Actually, Coldwell Banker is a global brand, and the tool was largely focused on helping them through the process of rebranding, which included changing their logo. Very specifically, I think there was 180,000 plus permeations because they are more or less like a franchise organization. But the tool was very instrumental in not only aggregating those assets, but the ability for each and every individual company or brokerage to go in and have access to basically download the version of their assets, the remarketed version of their assets, to start to set up flip over their office to the new branding and new face of that brand. Sean, I know much more that we did there, so I apologize, put you on the spot again, but.
So it's interesting because this is a good example of enterprise, right? So the corporate brand and wanting to do a brand refresh, the first major brand refresh that they did in 40 plus years, and then you have the local franchises, which very much run as their own independent business. And they look to corporate for support related to things like brand assets and perhaps some back end infrastructure and things along those lines, but very much run their business as best that they feel they need to in order to secure clients and secure relationships and obviously turn profits. So so you have two at times very different priorities in regards to what they want, what they need. And so what happened here was with the brand refresh, the initial deployment was very simply to just update logos and provide branded assets or templates from a corporate perspective, but nothing historically for Coldwell Banker was ever provided with the local franchise's name. So there was never a hybrid consult tech version of the Coldwell Banker logo. That was up to the individual franchise to do that work, to pay for that, et cetera. And a lot of times they, didn't leverage the corporate produced assets. So when the new logo came out, everyone was obviously excited. And with the introduction of BrandServe, as Tom said, we were able to produce a extremely large amount of localized versions of the logo for all these markets to have. And that was the first time in the history of Coldwell Banker that they actually were able to support that, because it would require a ton of resources and a ton of time to actually do that, and obviously budgets to support that. So the automated generation of all these localized logos and all the permutations, so all the different versions of that, colors, layouts, whether it was a stacked logo or horizontal or vertical, et cetera. So for use on signage, on business cards, collateral, et cetera. So these were all things that were automated through the tool. So something that they had scheduled a 2-year rollout for was done in, I think the initial rollout was something like 60 days, where we deployed. We weren't happy with that, to be clear. That was not something that we signed up for, but the excitement was there, and then it was like, sure, we could figure out how to get this going. And to your earlier question, it's like, how do you start these conversations? Well, in that case, they didn't even have guidelines for this new brand, et cetera. They just had, here's some basic components and this is what we want to do. And again, because it was a 2-year rollout, they had plenty of time to produce the guidelines and things along those lines. When it was like, well, we want to launch it around this event where they were announcing the new logo, we then had to go in and help them to produce some style guides so that we could actually get to the standardization to provide the automation and et cetera. So something very easy for our team to do, working with their brand ambassadors, et cetera, to produce that. But once that momentum started, then it was, well, what else can we do with this? We have these core logos or static assets, and then it became, well, how can we produce templates related to that? And again, the big thing here was now you had the opportunity for these local markets to actually put their local flavors on it. So office locations, office hours, agent images or photos or contact information, the ability that they could upload, homes that were recently sold or whatever in that particular area. So all of these things just became a much quicker and easier transaction. So again, supporting the needs of corporate, but also supporting the different needs of the local markets, and all of them seeing a cost savings, time savings with part of that. So huge success for both of those organizations, or both parts of those organizations, and then obviously all the suppliers and everything in between. So
fantastic. I wanted to, first of all, I have some questions related to security and privacy, but I wanted to sum up the capabilities so that, because I know that some people are joining now or have joined late. So BrandServe basically, and of course, feel free to add, it allows for comprehensive digital asset management. It allows for a company to centrally store online their digital assets, and at the same time it allows for real-time customization and sharing, depending on where you want to share. It allows for the customization of those assets. So the strategic distribution aspect is quite important, I believe. And having said that, the impact, of course, goes without saying maybe, but it's cost cutting, as the title of today's webinar is, efficiency, productivity, and of course, lower local cost related to the management of these digital assets. Now, I don't know if I have mentioned everything, first of all, before moving on. Anything to add?
No, you covered everything. The only other item is really governance and compliance, but we're sort of going to hit that with security anyway.
Yeah,
exactly.
So just on that, so anything that is customized or versioned through the tool is always available for reference as well. So not only is the completed asset available in the order history, but all the data associated with that available for reporting purposes, and could be packaged up and provided downstream for any internal use at a customer if they want access to those assets to see. So full transparency across the entire enterprise, however small or large that may be.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to something that I'm certain is in everybody's minds, or in the minds of most people when they hear about centralization and online and web-based solutions. Where is BrandServe, and where is it hosted, and is it, you know that the majority of the companies I come across with are based in the European Union. We have very strict privacy laws. How do you manage all these aspects?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I won't go too deep in terms of the technicality of it, unless of course someone has that knowledge and can pose a question. But essentially, the first thing is, so BrandServe is a SaaS-based model, right? So software as a service. So it just simply means that you pay a license, and whatever customization that you may or may not need as a brand, you get access to this tool. But what we did, because when we built this platform and we went to market, we sort of looked at what was out there, and taking into consideration, we will have both large and small organizations and be geographically diverse. How can we deliver this thing? Because typically, there are many ways to deliver SaaS, but typically what happens is you have a very centralized single instance. We chose what we define as really a hybrid approach. So to answer your question directly, where is it? We partnered with Amazon. So essentially the entire platform, all of its services and processes are sitting in Amazon and delivered as services. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, which is hugely important, is the geographic diversity. So if there isn't a requirement relative to where things are, it will typically be deployed in one of the North American data centers. There are many for Amazon, and they would be diversified across the two. However, because when we went to market as a hybrid, which simply means we have much more flexibility in how we deliver, we will deploy a instance of or a version of our tool in whatever data center that is closest to that particular brand, especially if it's offshore, right? So in the case of whether it's Greece or in the UK or what have you, Amazon being the size that they are, we have many opportunities to essentially put that instance. So it's still SaaS. So it's still, a subscription base. It's still our single platform, but it's basically deployed in a data center that is close to that locale and also closely adheres to whatever standards, GDPR or what have you, that are required. So everything we do lends itself to the importance of PII, which is basically your personal information out there, as well as elements of GDPR. Now that gets very deep and very complicated as to how certain companies prescribe, but we are compliant in the majority of those areas for that reason.
And I guess that compared to having something locally on your server, it is much safer and it makes better sense to keep something managed by Amazon rather than your local server.
It does, mostly though in the area of resilience. If you think about having something locally and the cost that it would take to not only deploy it, make it so that it's scalable for your folks to access it, but then the upkeep of that, right? So there's no diversification. If your single instance goes down, you're done. Whereas utilizing an enterprise level cloud provider like Amazon, we can get all the benefits of security while at the same time getting the increased scale and diversity. So for example, let's say we meet a partner who's okay with having their primary software installation in their local area, but let's say they're very close and they're okay with the UK, we would have the ability to fall over into UK. So if something goes down in, let's say, Greece, we can fail over to the UK, still be aligned and not lose any time. Whereas if it's in your office, you're done. Right. So that's the big thing, that I would, and that's just not Amazon. That's really Amazon, Google and Microsoft. They're your three big cloud providers. But again, we've chosen Amazon because of their breadth and flexibility.
Great. Hearing this, I think depending on which stage a company is or the level of maturity in regards to marketing and digital assets, it might make sense, whatever they're hearing, but it might also be daunting. So
Yes.
Starting something, this journey could be daunting. And what I wanted to say is that, of course, we are there in case a company needs more support in order to understand what strategy they should be having before they implement BrandServe, in order for the product to actually make sense for them and not seem like a mountain of responsibilities and something that cannot be overcome.
I think that's a great point. It absolutely is daunting, big or small, right? Because it may not just be the quantity of things you have to wrangle. It's just where do I start? What do I do? What are best practices? Providing a subscription service and having done this many, many, many times, that's, I think, one of the biggest things is we're always willing to basically say, well, look, here's the basic idea of what you want to try and achieve. In the process to get to it. So the work up front, which Shauna mentioned, that 60-day rollout, which it was an emergent problem because of that particular brand, but typically, we'll take that first, 30, maybe 60 days to sort of listen, learn, and understand what you already have, what you do, what you want, and lay out a plan. And then from there, you can go into, basically doing it. So it doesn't always have to be, I have hundreds of thousands of assets. You may have very few, but you just have very disparate processes, right? So that's I'd say the biggest thing. It doesn't always have to be a nationwide cable company or a nationwide real estate brand. it's really anytime you want to aggregate the items within your brand and make things, again, more scalable, more compliant, increase my productivity, that can benefit pretty much any business.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that because being something that is quite new in terms of how companies manage their digital assets, I would say that it's important to know that there is somebody, a human being somewhere to support, because of course, in my own experience, I know that we're always looking for tools to automate processes, and there are plenty online tools that you can go purchase a license, pay a monthly fee, and just manage. They leave you to it, basically. You have the license, you have access, and then you manage everything yourself. But I think that having a team of experts guiding you throughout this initial process, I would say, or even knowing that there are humans behind the product in case something comes up and needs to change or be customized, is quite important.
I would say it's as important as the solution itself, to your point. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to build flexibility in our offering, much like you, because essentially it's not just about, I know we're a software company, right? But I always use this sort of term where, you don't want to use software for software's sake, right? Or technology for technology's sake. You want to be very smart in what you use. And by the way, many occasions we've spoken to clients and say that, look, I get it, but this is not really, even if you can, this is not what you want to do. It's not going to benefit you. You want to do this over here, right? You want to have that mindful conversation as opposed to just whacking a piece of tech up there and saying it's $5 a month. Great, if you can, sure, but it doesn't always benefit you as much as the knowledge surrounding doing it right.
Absolutely. And coming towards the conclusion part of the of this discussion, do you have any feedback from the companies that you have supported, from their customers? Do the customers notice the change? Do they appreciate it? And do the companies themselves notice the cost element, the cost reduction, or the better management of the resources? What is the feedback that you're getting?
So the short answer is that they definitely recognize it. The long answer is it sometimes takes a little while to understand because they're so used to their older processes. They also are a lot of the third party in the case of, let's say, advertising agencies. In some instances, they may even feel threatened. But then once they understand what the platform does and the benefit, they actually become brand ambassadors themselves for the product. We've seen it many times from our clients where it makes those third-party partners able to do their job much easier and much more beneficial to the ultimate customer. But the cost savings and the time, I'd say the time savings is realized first. Because it's, I can go here and I can do this very quickly. And then the cost savings comes back into it because now you can do more with less, the proverbial, right? Do more with less.
Absolutely. Okay, and a final, let's say, question looking into the future. Do you see something changing with regards to digital asset management? Where is the technology going in this sphere?
I'm going to answer it in a little cheeky fashion, since AI is in every single conversation everywhere around the world.
That's what I was looking for.
even when it shouldn't be, quite frankly, right? But there's some really neat things. I think that one of the things that we're working on internally and playing around, again, without getting too technical, the biggest thing that sort of put AI on the map is really this concept of what's called generative AI, which essentially is that conversational bidirectional piece, right? So think about a search engine, right? And that's really becoming, to me, aside from help desk automation, the actual real practical use is what's very exciting, because you can have a direct interaction. Right now, I go in a search engine on, let's say, BrandServe, I key in a term, and we have ways to make it better using tags and stuff like that, but I key in a term and I hope for the best. That's what search engines do. What if there was a way that you could go in and have a conversation with the search engine, right? Or click a button that basically starts that conversation with you and serves back much more many relevant results, but also tells you what to do next. right? So we're already doing some of that internally, where as a first step, being able to have a conversational, what can I do, or how do I do, or, you know, sort of that thing, that's the next step as to where it goes. I think you'll also start to see much more automation. So for example, what we've also seen in a lot of our clients is not only do they automate, but things repeat. So 9 times out of 10, whether they're doing marketing campaigns that are monthly or quarterly or what have you, they're usually built off a base. And the only things that change are typically the offers or the calls to action or things like that. So in the sense of, let's say, using AI, you can basically set it and forget it. So if you go in and you can, again, let's say we're going to use conversational AI to basically figure out the best way or what things to use. It can look at my data and say, use this image versus that image. But getting past that, I can essentially build it once and say, run this every quarter and email me when it's done. Now, I don't even have to go to the tool to do things. So all of those are very, very possible at this point. They've sort of always been possible from a technical perspective, but very expensive and, you know, a lot of code to do it. Now it's becoming much, much easier with the large language models, which basically are what power generative AI. So yeah, so we're beyond excited as to what it can start to do. It can, I dare I say it, and I don't really want to, but it can start to humanize the experience. It really won't, because it's a poor way of saying it. AI is just as dangerous as it is exciting, but it really makes it a lot easier for those folks to just go in and very simply, quickly do their job.
Absolutely. I think that if this technology is utilized in the correct way, absolutely, it can bring a wealth of benefits. And one of them is to automate processes that do not need to happen by a human. Need to, you know, they could be done by somebody else instead of wasting resources, instead of putting them somewhere where they're more productive, for sure.
Yeah, and on that note, I think that's an important thing. If done responsibly, I look at it as not taking my job, but helping me do more with less in the proverbial sense, right? Because if I can go in and set up things and tell it what to do, go look here, and based on this profile, use this image and so on and so forth, I now can maximize what I do as opposed to just replace. It's never going to replace, but it's going to maximize the opportunity that I have or the skill set that I have.
Sean, anything to add on this or any other topic that we discussed today?
Nothing to extend any further. I think Tom did a good job of covering, especially the AI stuff. It's exciting, and obviously within reason and within, you know, limitations that European you know, guide rails may put in place. There's definite opportunity there. But the biggest thing to walk away with is what BrandServe provides is the ability to control the brand communication, create consistency, while providing the perception of increased flexibility with a local market or a local resource. So where historically you may not have been able to offer those things to those users or those groups because of scale and cost, et cetera, you now have the ability to give them really the ability to do all these things without resources, without additional budgets, et cetera. But it's still allowing for things from a corporate brand perspective to still be managed and maintained as far as consistency is concerned, et cetera. And then having full transparency. So everything that's out in the marketplace is available in one centralized location, all the data for reporting. And then that's where the AI would come in, is learning from that, right? So how did I target a particular segment or user group with what messaging, what images, whatever multivariate elements that were used, and learn from that, and then have that feedback into your strategy, and then start to refine your materials moving forward to make them more effective, more productive, more streamlined, perhaps reduce channels or reduce waste, and produce a better result, not only for the company and the organization, but also for the consumer that you're targeting, right? So they're not bothered with waste or you know, too many messages or confusion in the marketplace, et cetera. So we're excited to be in the middle of it, and we're excited to have an opportunity to potentially work with some folks that you've invited to this session. So.
Thank you very much. And my concluding remark is that technology coupled with professionals that can guide companies towards, at least at the beginning of this journey, where it's the most crucial part, is very important, and would be very happy to explore further with anybody who is interested in finding out more. So with that, thank you very much for this very interesting conversation. Thank you to everybody watching online. And yes, we are at your disposal should you need any more information. Thank you.
Thank you and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.